Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about one of the questions that I've gotten in the last day or so regarding concurrent periodization, and it's really an interesting question, and I think it highlights that people don't actually really always understand this, and that's okay because it can be a pretty nuanced topic. And someone had asked, hey, you're talking about concurrent periodization, and what's the difference between that and conjugate periodization and daily undulating periodization? So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. The difference, this might be a bit much for some people to grasp, but here's what's going on. The latter two are more specific programs. In other words, conjugate periodization is not a program. It's a category. It's an organization category. Whereas in the conjugate method is a specific program. So in other words, that's almost like asking, hey, Jason, what's the difference between full body workouts and starting strength? Or what's the difference between full body workouts, right? Full body linear workouts and strong lifts? Well, there isn't, right? There isn't a difference. In other words, there isn't a difference between concurrent periodization and the conjugate method, because the conjugate method is a concurrent periodization program, right? The same thing with daily undulating periodization. What's the difference? Well, daily undulating periodization is a form of concurrent training and concurrent periodization, right? Concurrent periodization is a category. And what that category means is that you are training multiple performance elements in the same week, but separated into different days. So in other words, you could be actually doing concurrent periodization if you do endurance work on separate days from your weightlifting. I mean, that can be incorporated as an aspect of concurrent periodization. But we generally mean it that you're working multiple rep ranges or performance elements or intensities on different days, right? Normally, historically, what was done was linear periodization, and that's why we use the term concurrent, because you're concurrently mixing your blocks together. Normally, in classic linear periodization, you don't train different rep ranges in the same week. You don't even usually train them in the same block. They're usually separated by weeks apart. So you don't do 3-rep sets and 8-rep sets in the same week in classic linear periodization. And people need to understand linear periodization has built some massive, strong men. It has created world record holding lifters in Olympic lifting, powerlifting, all these things. It has created some seriously, brutally strong and big guys. So people need to understand concurrent periodization is just a different organization pattern. So instead of doing it linearly to where you have a whole block of 10-rep sets and 5-rep sets and 3-rep sets all set into different blocks that are separated, completely spread apart, you're not training them even close to each other. In other words, you might have 6 weeks time split apart between the time when you trained 8-rep sets versus 3-rep sets. Like you might not even be doing them in the same month. That's linear periodization, right? That's the way it was done in classic linear periodization. You over time build heavier and reduce reps in blocks. Concurrent periodization, we're mixing things in the same week, but it's still into different days, and people need to understand that the different days is important. I've covered a lot of that already in the past. So these other routines, the daily undulating periodization is essentially a method where you change rep ranges every day. That's a bit different. That's a more complex concept. But it's still a form of concurrent training. Why? Because you're doing 2 different rep ranges in the same week on different days, right? That's still concurrent training. Daily undulating periodization, people will get this concept, and this arises more in the bodybuilding world, in the strength world, that you want to train all the rep ranges every week. Right? You want to train everything you're ever going to do in the same week, and you'll change them every single day. So in daily undulating periodization, if a person says, I want to train the 5-rep range, the 10-rep range, and the 15-rep range, they will actually do all 3 of them every week on different days. They might be doing it on a split routine. They might be doing it on full body. So if they're doing it full body, or let's say squats, let's say they're going to squat 3 days a week. You'll have a 15 rep day, a 10 rep day, and a 5 rep day, right? All on different days. And they undulate it. So they're going to just continually rotate through those at a much, much larger frequency. But usually daily undulating periodization, you're using up to 3 rep ranges in the same week. And you're changing. You're not doing the same back-to-back ever. Whereas with concurrent periodization, you might actually do 2 different days of the same rep range, and then you do your other rep range later in the week. So for example, you might have an upper, lower, right? 4 days in your training day. And it might be heavy, really low reps on both of those first 2 days, but one of them might be your heavy upper, the next day might be your really heavy lower. And then your higher rep could be the same way. Whereas with undulating periodization, every day you go in the gym, you're going to do a different rep range. So it's going to be more undulating, hence the term undulating periodization. I'm not a big fan of undulating periodization. I don't think it produces any better results or brings anything to the table that normal concurrent periodization does. But it is a form of concurrent periodization. So are we clear on that? Does anyone understand that? It's concurrent just means we're separating workout days into at least two different rep ranges in the same week. Undulating, you're bouncing the rep ranges every single workout. And you're usually doing more than 2 rep ranges in the same week. It's undulates. That's the difference, right? The conjugate periodization, conjugate is a word that they just use, right? It is, in terms of actual periodization itself, it's classic concurrent periodization. The conjugate method is really what it's called. It's not really conjugate periodization, it's concurrent periodization. But the conjugate method is Louis Simmons's brainchild. It is the West Side Barbell training system. It's a very, very specific program, right? So the conjugate method is not a form of periodization. It is a program. And it's the same as saying, hey, starting strength or strong lifts or whatever, Johnny Candido's novice program, Ice Cream Fitness 5x5. Those are all specific programs. The conjugate method is a specific program that falls under the category of concurrent periodization. And it's its own beast. For me to try to make a video explaining the conjugate method in detail, it would be a 3-hour-long video. All right. If you really want to understand the conjugate method, you probably need to go watch about 10 hours of Louis Simmons's lectures, and you need to buy his big manual on West Side Barbell training, right? That's what you need to do if you want to really fully understand it, which I am familiar with it. I have a very good grasp of what they do, but that would be way too much for me to cover here in one thing. So, but to explain the difference, when people say concurrent periodization, it's just a category. So when they say the conjugate method, or some people will call it conjugate periodization, but it's not conjugate periodization, it's concurrent periodization. But the conjugate method is the actual official name of West Side. Like West Side is a slang term that people use for the conjugate method of train West Side, right? Because it's started and it's run out of West Side Barbell. That's pretty much the ground zero for that training method, where it's developed, where it's practiced, all of that, at West Side Barbell. So again, we're talking about a specific program, whereas in daily undulating periodization is a subcategory of concurrent periodization. The conjugate method is an example of a concurrent periodization program, a specific program by name. Hopefully that clarifies things and it makes a little more sense now. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.